According to an analysis by NBC News, in 25 of the 30 counties where Trump held his final rallies ahead of the 2020 presidential election, 25 of 30 of those, he did worse than he did in the 2016 election. Either his margin of victory dropped or some of them flipped to Democrats entirely. Only 5 of them did he see no change or an increase in the number of supporters he had. Now, this is actually pretty interesting. And right now, there is not necessarily any kind of prevailing theory as to why this happened. So we're left to pure speculation, unfortunately. So here's a couple of ideas of why his support in most of these counties may have dropped. Well, for starters, these were all super spreader events. So it's kind of hard for people to go out and vote for you when they caught a deadly disease at your rally. There's also, the people who got hypothermia at some of your rallies. I'm sure they weren't inclined to go and vote if they were even out of the hospital at that point. Then, of course, you had some down here in Florida. The exact opposite happened. Instead of hypothermia, they got heat stroke. They had to bring in the fire trucks to literally spray them with the fire hoses to cool them down. And once again, people were sent to the hospital. So that's pretty good theory, right? Kind of hard to vote for Trump when you're stuck in the hospital because of your support for Trump. So that could be one reason, but to be honest, that would only account for a handful of votes in a handful of cities. What could have happened is my theory about him running for 2024 to begin with, and that is people are tired of it. Oh, sure, the rallies were still packed, but the spectacle of it, the rubbing off of it is what people are sick of. They don't like his personality. They don't like the personality of the hardcore MAGA hat wearers, the people with the flags all over the back of their pickup trucks. Yeah, that gets obnoxious. And believe it or not, that does in fact turn people off. They view it as a cult and they don't want to be a part of that. So that could also play a role in this. Or it could simply be that it was too little too late. As we all know, the pandemic prevented Donald Trump from holding rallies for most of this year, whereas had that not occurred, he'd have been doing these constantly, just like he did in the last month when he said, to hell with it, I'm going out there, I don't care if they're super spreader events, we're going to make this happen. But to be honest, I think the real reason is that people got sick of it. They get tired of the interruptions of their daily lives. I don't know if you've ever been in an area where a president has come to visit. It's a big event. I live in a small town. Barack Obama came through here. Didn't stop, came through here, had to drive his motorcade through here. They shut down every road in this city for about 3 hours. And this is a very right-wing area. So yes, the right-wingers were furious. Businesses couldn't open. People couldn't go shopping. They couldn't go to the grocery store. Had trouble getting their kids to and from school because we really only have like one major road in and out of the city. They were furious. Same thing happens when Donald Trump comes and does a rally. He did one in the city next door to us in the final days of the campaign. Shut down roads, almost shut down the airport, which should happen during a pandemic anyway. People get annoyed, and they associate that annoyance with the candidate. But again, that's a small part of it. The overall fact is that people were sick of the novelty of Donald Trump. The newness had worn off. As I frequently said in the lead up to the election, Trump was the Macarena. First time you heard it, it's kind of weird, but it's a little catchy. Who knows? Let's see what happens. But then you just hear it over and over and over again for 4 straight years, and you don't ever want to hear that song again. And that's what happened with Trump. The newness wore off. People kind of wanted to see what would happen. What an experiment. Put in this inexperienced weirdo. Let's just see what happens. And oh my God, it was worse than any of us could have ever expected. The newness wore off. People were tired of doing the Macarena, and that is what happened. I think it's purely coincidental that he held rallies in these cities. He chooses the rallies strategically, by the way. These are swing districts, and they're called that because they swing. I don't necessarily think there is a correlation between him holding the rallies there and people not voting for him. I think overall, as we saw throughout the country, people were simply sick of him. And that does not bode well if he chooses to run again in 2024.